What's up, everybody? It's Cloaken, and I'm back for episode 2 of Meet the Masterminds. If you missed episode 1, you can definitely check it out. Jean-Eric Khalif, the technical art director for Super Evil Megacorp. We had a really great first episode, and I'm super psyched for episode 2. Today, joining us is Eduardo Gonzalez. He's the art director for Super Evil Megacorp. And dude, thanks so much for taking time out of your busy schedule, hanging out with me, hanging out with the community, and letting us get to learn a little bit more about where you're coming from. So thanks for being here with me.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Dude,
I hope
awesome.
you do justice. Sean-Eric did a good job. I hope I can do just as good.
Yeah, he was a brave guinea pig, dude. Walking headfirst into a Kevin plan is you never quite know what you're gonna get. So this is a good one. But man, I'm excited to hear more about your story. Like I said with Jean-Eric, this is fun for me because we get to kind of take a break out of our incredibly busy days, and I just get to talk to you a bit, learn a little bit about who you are and where you come from. And I would love to just start with that. Like, can you talk to me a little bit about how you got into art and then specifically into games? Because making that leap is sometimes something that surprises artists, as I've found in this industry. Like, a lot of my friends start out as artists, they want to go into animation, they want to go into other sort of areas of art, but then to get drawn into games specifically is sometimes something that surprises people, but other times it's things people shoot for, dead on the bullseye. So what was that like for you, and how did it all begin?
Well, getting into art, I think I don't remember not liking art. How's that? I think I was born just drawing. I might have scribbled on the inside of my mom's belly. Like I just don't remember not loving art, not wanting to just spend more time drawing. So that's something that it's just kind of hard. I think some people got into it a little later, but me, I just kind of always knew that that's what I loved, and I just focused on it. Most of the time, I was struggling to try and make room for everything else. So that's what got me in trouble. So I loved it so much that, my grades, my schoolwork, everything, hanging out with my friends, I'd rather do art. So there was a downside to it, but I was kind of focused and passionate about it.
How were your parents about that? Like, obviously, I'm sure the school thing maybe raised some questions, but in general, did you find that they were pretty supportive of your talent or your abilities or your interest in that regard? And how did that look in your life?
No, we were fairly kind of like humble upbringings, and my father was just like, no, we got to get out of here, and you being an artist, you're going to be a starving artist. He's more of like, become a mechanic, they make more money than artists. He had that perception. But in general, like everything that around my youth and art always got me in trouble. So my grades weren't great because of art. In class, I would write or draw on the table directly, and that would get me in trouble. So everything that got me in trouble usually involved art and a little bit of graffiti, and not like vandalizing people's property, even though it is other people's property, but it was more like the city inside the tunnels, doing images and pictures instead of just writing names or something like that. But in general, I think like everything around art and my youth got me in trouble, and the perception of my parents was like, oh no, this is going downhill fast.
That's so interesting. What were the visual topics of your interest? Like, was it superheroes? Was it comic books? Like, what were the things that you found yourself drawing? Was it graffiti art in general, or like, font styling and interesting stuff? Like, what was it that you were interested in?
I was interested in the things that didn't exist, and there wasn't good enough cool pictures. So grabbing an encyclopedia, looking at like anything like dinosaurs or anything like that like they didn't have good images, or somebody like was drawing them, I would try and draw my version of them. That was really interesting. I try, like, if there was enough description, I would say, what would that look like if it was real, and instead of like some derpy kind of version of that in the encyclopedia that nobody cared about. I don't think they had some of the best artists in some of those,
sure.
At least the ones that we had.
Yeah.
So that, and I think like obviously comic books, that was a huge, I was mainly more into the stories and less about the art. I just thought that was normal. The things that really like woke me up to like, holy crap, this is amazing, is obviously films. The art in that and the making of that. randomly one of my dad's friends from his work knew how to draw Mickey Mouse, and I saw him draw him in front of me, and that just blew my mind because I'm like, oh, you can do it. I thought it was some kind of machine or something. It took a company, a huge building of people to make Mickey Mouse, and that was my perception at the time. And then seeing this one guy just kind of really quickly get it down on paper, I was really impressed, and I'm like, okay, I want to know how to do that. And so it's just a lot of things, but in general, anything that had a really good description, anything that had a story or something like that, I wanted to create the images for it.
That's so cool, man. And so how did this mature in you? Like, did you ever formalize that with any kind of education? And how did you begin to sort of, look into games or start to pursue work in games as you grew older?
Two things happened. So like I would win little art competitions that my teachers were like, you're going nowhere with this, everything else. And so they're like, might as well just enter you in contests for your art since you're so focused in that. And I would win here and there, and that would show that there was potential there, I guess. And it would show me that there is something beyond just drawing for myself. And then secondly, as I started getting older, closer towards like 18, people started asking me serious questions like, hey, what are you going to do for your life? And then, my dad's like, hey, what are you going to do when I kick you out? And so like all that stuff made you realize, okay, I got to take this serious. How do I turn my passion into my, something that can sustain me? And so that's where I started making the shift and started getting really crazy focused on making that my career.
That's awesome, man. And did at this point in time, were you thinking games or were you just thinking something else? Like,
no, I was thinking art school. I was thinking communicating through graphic language. Like everything that I knew was like I really didn't think people drew pictures of people. They didn't draw spaceships. They're just telling a story. Like when you draw something, you're just telling a story over and over again. That's what I own. I didn't know anything else. Yeah. And so I went to school and I wanted to go to art center so badly to kind of like learn everything that they know about in general art. And I think foundation really just the deep guts into art, because that can translate to any direction. And I didn't know that at the time, but all I know is that I wanted to understand it to its core. Of course, art center is one of the most expensive schools. It's probably equivalent to going to Caltech, to be honest. I think it's slightly more expensive now. So from where I came from and what I needed to come up with in terms of like paying for that school, a school that doesn't do scholarships, was kind of ridiculous. So I think in this time I was thinking, how do I get there? And so I spent 4 years building a portfolio. Every 3 to 6 months, just start from scratch, build a better one, submit. If they said, yes, you're in, come on in, you made it. I'm like, no, I need a full scholarship. We're like, we don't give those. I'll be back. And I did that for 4 years until I think I wore them down.
Did you really?
Yeah.
And they gave you a scholarship?
Yeah. Dude. This entire time I was paying the bills by working at PCC as a hazardous materials manager, believe it or not.
How interesting, dude. So how old were you when you got the scholarship and you were able to enter? Was that?
I think like 20. I'm not sure. Don't
don't hold me to it. I get it, man. My mind's going too.
It was after high school. Went to PCC for general education, trying to figure out like how I got to jumpstart this. So in general, like I think like I went to right out of school, I went to for general ed at Pasadena City College, and then I started to kind of start thinking about my future, and the I need money, I need a home, I need a place to stay, all of that stuff was starting to call. So I started looking for jobs and just kind of thinking about what the next step is, but never did I think like whatever I did, it was always to the vehicle that was going to get me to my real passion, which was, being an artist. So whatever I did, I knew that it was a temporary thing, no matter how good I got at it. And then that just kind of like said every day of my life, I would go to Disney Imagineering. I would apply for positions that I was nowhere close to qualifying for, and then they would give me feedback, and I would build I would make relationships with some of the art directors there and other studios, and I'd say, just help me make this one better. And they're like, it's pretty good for now. Like, what are you talking about? No, I want it perfect for that scholarship that I'm going after. And Tom Tharson, he was like at Disney Imagineering. He's the one that was he's the one that designed all of the theme parks in for Disneyland. Him and many others. But like, he was really an amazing person. And he was a teacher at Art Center. And he's just like, they don't give scholarships, and he's trying really hard. He's like, it's like, okay, we'll see. So you imagine how surprised I was when I finally got the yes, you're accepted. I'm like, but this time it was like this beautiful sealed, glossy, plastic. You know how Art Center packaging was just amazing, and it's just like, what is this? What? And so I opened it, and it's everything. It's like, you don't have to have a finance, and we're taking care of all the finances.
Wow.
You come on in, and you can imagine how much I cried. I was like, woo.
Wow, what an amazing, interesting story for pursuing your passion in that way, and to also be so hungry, like as an individual for it, that you're seeking it in that way. I think is so cool, man. And when you thought about that end state of being an artist, like what that could look like, did you even perceive beyond school, or was it just like, nope, this is the necessary hurdle, going to do school, and then we'll figure out the rest? It was just, that was the goal. Let's hit that goal. And then as soon as you hit that, we'll see how the world opens up. Yeah.
No, I think like graffiti, like, just gave me a focus on communication. Like, I didn't want to, like when you're limited, when you have a limited palette in a spray, not a pencil, like, you eliminate all detail and you just start trying to see the big picture and organize things from afar. And then you have time constraints and stuff like that. So like, I just think like, there's a lot of things, like I did portraits for people, and people, I was pretty good at kind of like, I don't know if I am anymore, but like, I was pretty good at capturing who they are, but they always say it doesn't look like me. And the reason why is because people want to see their ideal versions of them, not themselves. So I added way too many wrinkles, way too many lines. And I learned very quickly that like, you have to like simplify things so that like, and smooth things out. And they're like, yeah, that's me. But I know that I didn't want to be pigeonholed for sure. I always wanted to see like, I just knew that this was a communication vehicle, not a visual, kind of media. I don't know how I knew that, but I wanted to tell stories. It's kind of funny. I didn't want to be a writer.
Yeah.
But I wanted to tell stories with my art, not show people pretty pictures.
That's so interesting. Yeah, dude, I love it, especially knowing you now and your passion around world building, and how, like, it's interesting to see the end and hear the beginning, because I know where this story leads, but it's obviously super interesting to hear how it unfolds.
The one thing that if you don't mind me jumping in, the one thing that I do remember that was a big impact. We didn't have a lot of toys and all that stuff, so like, imagine you don't have things to play with, and you just kind of get lost in your imagination. And I know that a lot of the times that I entertained myself was based in my head. Like, I would imagine things and visualize things and stuff like that. So I think that, we couldn't afford a lot of movies. We couldn't see, like, my dad liked the baseball versus like TV shows. So we had to tell our own stories, and we had to do all sorts of stuff. So I think like that also is an influence as to why I always like telling stories as well, because there was a lack of it in our household because of whatever financial situations or whatever. But there was we had to find a way to kind of entertain ourselves, and we used imagination.
Were you a reader at all? Like, did you read, the Lord of the Rings or Tolkien or any of that stuff? I mean, maybe the comics, like you said, but
comic books,
yeah, got it. Cool, man. Well, yeah. So take me through Art Center, and what happens on the other side there, like, and how do we get games into the fold here? Were you a gamer? Like, was gaming something you did? It was okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was always somebody's house.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
didn't have a lot of, but like it was if I found a quarter, I'd go down and play Pac-Man.
Mm.
I'd go play Street Fighter. And going to the arcades. And if for some reason I was to like make it rich and get like a couple of dollars here and there, I would go to the arcade and not tell anybody and just waste it, not feel one bit of guilt.
Yeah.
The game that I think influenced me the most is Metal Gear Solid.
Mm.
It was my friend had bought it. He had the whole system, and I remember like every room, every item that you need to go look. We got lost, so I would start to draw every frame, so that we knew, and we would put it up against the wall. And I drew every frame, and we'd be like, okay, 2 rooms down, okay, get key 5 or get key 1. This is where everybody was trying to look for like the scuba gear to get to that, to that one, to the other side where you go like 20 frames with water.
Yeah.
And so like you can't make it. You need the scuba gear. Where is the scuba gear? And nobody knew where to find it. And I remember just going from room to room and drawing everyone everywhere. And I knew exactly where it was because it was on the wall and I had plotted it out. So we went deep with that game and we knew everything. And what we did is we actually captured the entire game, broke it down frame by frame. We didn't realize that we just dissected a game. We were just trying to find the stuff. So that was my first experience with the game and understanding a little bit deeper. We didn't know we were like breaking it down, being game developers or something like that. We were just being super curious and massive fans. That was a game that changed everything for me.
Wow, man, what an interesting one too. Like that game, especially when you think about the first one, it's such an interesting first step into crazy world building as well, right? Like as you watch that series sort of unfold, pretty surprising. Well, yeah, man. So I'm assuming your time at Art Center went really well. You probably learned just a universe of information that was probably right at your passion center. But what was it like on the other side of that? And how did you enter into the big scary world of a career? Take me through that stuff.
So I was, like every college student, I'll take a job if you got it. So I was prepared. I was like, I was into films. I'll take a film job and I'll take a game job. I wasn't picky. I knew that eventually I was going to be where I wanted to be, but at some point I just needed experience. And I didn't, I was preparing so much to enter the world, and I was excited and all that stuff. But I remember one of the counselors came up and says, "Hey, can we talk to you for a minute? Can we pull you aside?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but I got to get to my senior show." It's like, yeah. But let me pull you aside. There's some people that want to talk to you. And so they just kind of pulled me aside and they're like, "Look, we're introducing certain students to certain companies. They want us to bring some of the people that are, I guess, from their mind, floating to the top, whatever that means." And so they pulled me aside and I just kind of started talking to a whole bunch of people in the room here and there. I didn't know what happened. At the end of that, I just felt like it was my grad show, but personalized. And so a lot of people rotated, different companies were talking to me, but I didn't realize anything had happened. I just kind of was like, okay, now go back to my grad show. And I'm over there, my grad show, and I was very disappointed that people weren't looking. And, that whole feeling is like, do people like it? And it was just so much stress. But like about 2 months after the grad show and I'm graduated, everything's done, I got a call from Sony in San Diego. And they're like, "Hey, come on down. We're over here. Here's the address. Just call me. Here's my number. Call me when you get here." And I did. So it was 2002. And in 2002, gaming, all jobs were at an all-time low, and gaming jobs were like gold, right? There was 200 and something people outside for a single job at that studio. Wow. I mean, my sister understood the fact that there wasn't a lot of jobs, so she overcompensated by putting me into a suit for a game.
Oh, shoot.
So and the suit was so large that I had to roll it up so it looks like a fit. Nobody rolls up sleeves on a suit, but yeah, we did. And so I got there, big giant portfolio. If everybody remembers 2002, like there wasn't digital. It was all. You had to carry
that. You had to lug that thing around, right?
So I showed up, get right in line, and I'm waiting. I get this call. So I pick up my phone and I said, hello. And it was the art director that I had spoken to 2 months earlier. And he says, when are you going to get here? And I'm like, I am here. It's like, where? I'll go find you. And it's like, I'm in the line. He goes, what are you talking about? You already have the job. Get in. And so I'm just like, what? I didn't even realize that I had gotten in those interviews during my grad show. So it was a huge surprise. And the entire time I didn't know that I had anything. And, so I just misread and misunderstood the situation.
What was this specific role, Eduardo? What was the actual role here with Sony?
Cinematics department. I guess you can see that storytelling, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It probably just made sense with what I was working on. I started doing a lot of like mood paintings and stuff like that. So like it just made tons of sense. And he saw me. I walked in. He saw me with the suit. By the way, he shows up in a wetsuit because he had just came back from surfing. And then the rest of the team had flip flops and shorts. And I was another person that was getting hired that same day too. Was wearing a t-shirt and shorts, and I'm just with a suit. And so he's like, okay, we've got, and this is a true story. This is like, we've got Neopets, we've got SOCOM. And by the way, SOCOM, I was like one of the best players in the world in SOCOM. So I would have died to be on that game. And so like, we got Neopets, we got SOCOM. And I forgot the third game, Off-Road Fury or something like that. But they're like, and then, everybody was getting the signs like, you're on this, you're on this. He just looked at me and he's like, you've got Neopets.
You're like, what? Why?
I was in a suit and I deserved every bit of it. But you know what? I rocked the shit out of Neopets.
I bet, yeah.
And I mean, I did, it took them like a month and a half, 2 months for them to see all that stuff. And they're like, okay, you're on SOCOM.
That's awesome. So you did get to shift over eventually.
Yeah. I loved it. Actually, I almost kind of regretted like shifting over. I know that wasn't the bigger IP, but I love what I did there. It was really stylized. It was really exaggerated, and I think Neopets look better with a little bit more fidelity into it. Besides chunky, I don't know if you remember it, but it's just not interesting.
So was this, you were saying it was some mood pieces? Was it some concept work as well? Like, was it just a little bit of everything in terms of the game work, or? Yeah,
a little bit of everything. So sometimes when you have games, there's several things that you do. You could, in cinematics, so that was my doorbell. So in cinematics, I think you find yourself trying to figure out the overall tone.
Yeah.
And then sometimes the game is being developed from scratch, or sometimes there's elements that aren't in the game and you have to make them up. So like these characters are NPCs here, but now they're going to be in like the middle of the fight. So we have to actually add more fidelity. And then the cinematics have a lot more detail and more information and motion. So I would just draw and keep drawing until these things came to more of like a realistic look to them versus the game models and everything else. Obviously, they didn't have, the fidelity that they could in games back then. So they just, everything was blocky, which is nobody noticed. It looked awesome, but when it came to cinematics, that's where they presented the fantasy, right?
Yeah, the full expression of the fantasy for sure.
Yeah. And so we would kind of take whatever the art department did for the game and just put it on steroids and almost make it super ultra realistic. Like, what would it look like if it was real?
Yeah.
So we would just kind of redo everything in that sense, with that extra detail. And so I would do that for every game that they had to do cinematics, which was, obviously we did God of War, Killzone, Off-Road Fury. We ended up doing some cinematics for that. But in general, then after that, like Sony executives would even pluck me for other new games in development to sell, to actually pitch and see if they can get off the ground to other executives. So I started becoming the IP development guy where, it's not like game development, it's more IP development. So I did that for a while. I did that for 4 years. Mostly through Sony San Diego and Cinematic, but I would do also other stuff. And it was kind of like a contract kind of thing because they would put me everywhere. So I was still doing films on
Got
the
it. Wow,
yeah,
that's intense. So
yeah,
these are sort of your roots then in kind of world building, because I know somewhere along your line here you join up with the team at Riot as well, right? And working on League
yeah.
and working on world building there. Was there a step in between there as well?
The big one,
Oh, the big step.
the big education. Threewave.
Okay. Yeah.
Threewave was like video game boot camp for me. So
Okay.
I'll see if I can like the whole experience was amazing, but there was a senior level team that could make shit so fast, so quickly, and so accurately, and they were outsourcing the multiplayer aspect of games, which is everything now. Like all of our games are
Yeah.
multiplayer. But
Yeah.
back then, the studio would make the single player experience, and that's all they cared about. And they're like, ship out the multiplayer. And so we would have to redo the entire game so they can run on a network. And then we would have to do every map within like 6 months. So like 12 maps, 6 months, sometimes 2 maps per month, sometimes one map per month. And we, like every studio that we work with had a different engine, a different workflow. So I was like learning game development from multiple directions as an art director, just really overseeing workflows, pipelines, and also styles, and understanding what all these other art directors were doing with the single player and what it took to get there. And then just the experience with all the engines and how they solve different things and how we would gut things out and break things apart and build the same thing in multiple different ways. It was like video game boot camp for sure.
Sure.
And so that's like, I was an IP developer. Now I'm a game developer. Now I feel like I learned that aspect, and that's what put me in a spot where, like, when I got back, yes, I immediately started working for Sony again. But right before we signed the contract, I was doing moonlighting with some characters, and they were paying me $100 per character, and I only did it because I loved it. Because I was, at the time, I was getting paid, like, I don't want to say how many, but I was getting paid way more for character. And why I said yes to them, I don't know. I just love the fact that they're like, look, do a character, draw it out, 6 hours later, you're done. We're not going back and forth. This is like, here's a little tiny description, and you just tell us what it looks like, and that's it. And then I would submit it. Next thing you know, it's in game. Next thing you know, they're shipping it. And I'm like, what the heck's going on?
That's gotta be so satisfying as an artist in some ways. You're right. It's like,
yeah. So something that I spent 6 hours on, 2 months, 2 months later, it's already in the end, like running around, it's living. It's over and over again. So I finally said, no, I'm going to get a job at Sony. They're going to hire me full time. And then that's when, Riot, put the gloves on and then really just did a number on me, and convinced me to like join them.
Yeah. What's the time frame here in terms of Riot and its sort of trajectory? Was it already pretty peaked in terms of League as a game, or was this pretty early for Riot as a studio?
Oh, really early. Like when I walked in, I'm like, I made a mistake.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was like a really scrappy small team. They had just released Lux, and it was a horrible release. And I'm like, oh no, what did I do? But the way they reacted to the community, and the way they reacted to making a really bad decision in Lux, and how they turned it around, really said, no, these guys are the right people. This is a good team. They hurried everything up, and they pissed off everybody, and everything was just was chaos, and it just scared the crap out of me. But what they did with how they shifted and how they took care of the community immediately when they were disappointed, and the entire team kind of rallied around it. They used the community art, and they used individuals that were the loudest voices, and they say, we'll grab your art, we'll bring it in, we'll fix Lux for you. And then, Katie was hired immediately because she was one of the community members that was pissed off that Lux looked terrible. So they hired her on, and they're like, we're going to get this done.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I love this place.
That's awesome. Were you were hired as an art director at that time, or was it something else? Okay.
It's funny. That's why, my wife knows that Sony's always took care of me, and they've always been great to me. And so they wanted to give me an art director, and they wanted to like think about my role, and they were really, like, what do you need? What do you want? And then I got convinced to go to Riot. Oh yeah, you're going to be a Raider concept artist. You might take a pay cut. I don't know. We don't have. This is going to be our only game. We haven't shipped. There's only like 50, 60 of us. And yeah, we're over here in Culver City in this kind of small area.
So why'd you say yes?
I don't know. Because he said the right thing, and I don't know. Mark Merrill was the one that was kind of like pitching it to me, and he was trying to get me to say yes. But he like said something that and he kept his promise. But he said, I will make sure that you get creative freedom, and you can't get that in most bigger studios.
Yeah.
So like being able to like really kind of drive and build out. And I said, at some point, I really want to build this IP and really build it right and have that. It's like, yes, you're in the right place. We want to do all that stuff. And so I said yes because of that. And it was just off of a promise, but the way he said it, like, to this day, I know he's a good guy because like, I know he meant it and he proved it over time after time. And just everything that he ever said, he kind of like fought really hard to make it happen. And most of that stuff did. So I think like that was the right call. But at the time I was just guessing, I just believed them wholeheartedly. And it was the right call. Obviously my wife now says, she was really pissed at me, like, Sony, right? Who? Art director? Concept artist?
Right.
Like, what? Like, I don't get this. You're going backwards here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'm going forward. I don't know why, but I'm going forward. And she was mad at me until she was not.
Yeah. Was it a weird shift going from that sort of real hands-on game boot camp sort of experience back to execute on character designs? Or was it, I mean, it sounds like that's always been something you were doing along the way. But tell me more about that shift and what it was like, adjusting to that team and kind of being in the trench, so to speak, supporting a very specific part of a creative process rather than what I imagine grew to become very big oversight of much larger concepts around the world of Runeterra and the sort of IP of League over the years.
Yeah. Yeah, I went from at Sony gutting out an engine to make sure that we have the proper lighting in a game in Battle Royale. That's what that last thing that I was doing, to like just draw characters. And to me, like I don't actually like I'll say it. I don't really like being an art director. I don't really like the management part. I'd rather be drawing. I always rather be creating stuff, but I do it because I think those are the steps to make sure that we get an amazing product. So I think like if there's people in place and they're doing it, I don't care. I just did my part. Over time, obviously, it needed restructure, it needed an art director, and it needed art leads and all that stuff. So it just naturally started becoming that, and I started taking on some of those roles. So I was never worried that wasn't like, if I can do the job if they needed me. Sure. But if I do this part, I've never been someone that like is attached to titles or anything like that. Yeah. I just wanted to be a part of the process. And I know it sounds cheesy, but it never really dawned on me that like I was being demoted title wise because I was having fun and it was what I wanted to do.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you rode the rocket ship of League of Legends, man. Like, so take me through that a little bit. What was that like? And goods, ups, downs. Like, what was? I just am very curious, even as someone who I don't know a lot of people at Riot. Now I do, because a lot of my Blizzard employee friends work there, but I didn't know a lot of Riot developers during this era of life or time for that studio. So what was that like for you? How did the company change? Very curious.
I think when we were growing irresponsibly, we were having the time of our lives, like making a champion every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Was the hardest thing
That's crazy,
I've
man.
never seen that happen. And they were building a game in a store. They were like, and every time we were already doing such hard things, and they were like, okay, now we're going to do this other stuff. And I'm like, who's gonna do it and how we're gonna do it? And so their ambition was always bigger than what we were capable of doing, but they always found a way to kind of hack it together. So I got to see a startup just push and push and push and push until things started kind of happening. So you know, when we had to make sacrifices and make ugly art to just get the game out and make our players happy, I saw that side of it. Then when we started sitting down and we started looking back and we had enough time to kind of focus on saying, this is all ugly, you know, the company itself, then we had to focus on how to like build the right team, bring in the right people. And we had the right team to build a game from scratch. But now we didn't need more people that can build a game from scratch. We needed more people that can make games prettier. And so a lot of people started coming in to saying, how do we clean up this mess that we put together? But I think like 70-80% of like what was special about like League of Legends was already built in.
Right.
We just needed to start polishing it and started and enhancing it and then adding depth. And it was probably the harder part of that. It's like legitimizing the visuals, legitimizing the game design, and adding esports and it becoming so like critical. Like you can't have a game without the rules and in place. And imagine if for some reason some piece of artwork created some kind of advantage or disadvantage, like there had to be some level of precision and all that stuff for esports as well. So it's a whole different game now than ever before. And so the new crew that we started kind of bringing in the right people to kind of start focusing on that stuff. And I think that was like the biggest transition for me. Like scale. I just realized that I'm like, I don't know. There was, I know I started becoming an associate art director at that time when we need to start scaling. And we were hiring, I hired, like we all started looking at like, we need to hire an art director, a studio art director. And then, you know, like the first thing that my wife said, and a lot of people that said to me, well, why don't you do it? And so you don't understand. This thing's bigger than me right now. I want somebody that can actually do it. And then I want to learn from it. And so, you know, obviously, you know, Adam Murguia and all this stuff, all these amazing people came in, and I learned, and what I learned is I knew nothing at this point. Like there was like, when you go to Sony and EA, like these things are already established. Seeing these huge companies at that scale get built from the things that you kind of started was just amazing to see, and to build that muscle and to see it happen and try to make it do it in the way where like it's the right way. We try to stay a startup as long as possible. And honestly, I think we went to 2,000 people and still feel like a startup before it didn't. You know, and then at a certain scale, there's nothing you can do. You have to be more like a corporation. And I think they're handling that well. And then that transition into like managing and running teams. I was running like 4 different teams at the end of that. And the best part is building the world. Like I co-founded with a narrative individual, the world building team.
Yeah, talk to me about this, man. I'm very passionate about hearing about this side of your story. And I feel like in our time working on Catalyst Black and working at Super Evil, you know, we talk about world building a lot. You and I jam on what it is we're building here, but I'm very, very interested in hearing how that all began, particularly at Riot with you and whoever colleagues it was to sort of realize that we really need to spend more energy and time on this as a studio, and then how you go about doing that, particularly for a game that had this history or this legacy of development already, and in some ways probably some checks you already wrote about the world that you built and all of that. Like, I'm really interested in hearing what that was like for you guys.
Yeah, so I like that's in my DNA. So like very quickly, when I got to Riot, they put me in a R&D team, and you know, we were working on the early version of their first-person shooter, and we were working on Dominion, the secondary map to League of Legends, And so like this strike team of R&D individuals that early on, I looked around the room and I said, found out who was who. And Sean Carnes was the narrative director and, kind of in charge of world building. And so I'm like, oh, I'm sitting next to him. And so I sat right next to him and I just I just want to know, I'm not going to push, but as long as he doesn't kick me out, I'll be good. And so we started building Dominion around like, how does it fit in the world? And I was just having the time of my life, but like, I think it was too early to start building a world. And I think we all realized, and he realized that he was either there too early. And so he moved on. And so now it's just me. And then we had hired another one, Matt Groff, who co-founded the world building stuff, but we just kind of like, just put enough in there. But never, we knew that we were interested in that. We knew that we were going to start building that. We named the certain characters. We put them in certain factions at some point. We kind of like did a lot of that stuff. But then of course I drew the pictures and stuff like that and drew the characters. And so we started building this map. Fast forward, after we go through this huge stage, I let the champion team, I let the skins team, I let the the splash team, like we built a lot of that stuff. And then once I'm like, I think I've led or art directed a lot of these teams at this point. And I kind of like don't feel like doing more characters or champions, and I feel bad that I said that. But at the time, I'm like, I want something big, something chunky to kind of do. And so me and Matt said, now it's the time. Let's put a package together, a presentation. We went to Brandon at the time because he was in charge of that department in the creative department, and we just said, look, we need all the time in the world. Probably we don't know how to. We can't tell you a budget. This might cast. We're going to need a lot of people, and then on top of that, we were going to need a very specialized type of artist, which are narrative and creative in minded, not just production minded. And so he just like, yes, when can you start? And that was it. I was like,
so cool, dude.
It was awesome. And so it was a hell to get it all started.
I'm sure.
People that were like building the game hated us for trying to change the game.
Yeah.
And then players were afraid that they might not like it, so the pressure was on. Throughout the entire development and startup, everybody saw us as the enemy of League of Legends. And especially because I said dumb things like, no, this isn't League of Legends. This is a bit higher. It's going to be, it's parent to League of Legends and to other products. We need an IP that will influence all these things. And nobody got it at the time. So they're like, you're not touching this game. And they were right. The thing is, we were never going to touch League of Legends. It was just going to back and forth influence each other. But at the end of the day, it was going to be something that we can build other IPs from.
Yeah, you were trying to build an umbrella of a kind in some ways that you weren't ever going to try to estrange League from its roots. It was just how do we make the case that it could kind of sit underneath, right? Yeah. That's really cool, man. So it seems to me that a lot of that stuff has sort of blossomed over the course of the years. Now we're seeing, Riot make TV shows, and of course the cinematics team that they have, Fortiche, that's working with them and making some of the most incredible trailers and all this stuff. What I'm curious to get, after all this sort of fruit of this work, why leave or why go start something new? I'd love to get your thoughts on that. What motivated you to turn a chapter in your life, to leave all of that really hard-earned work that is just now starting to sort of pay off, I think, publicly? Why leave and start something new? I want to hear how you got to Super Evil Megacorp and what brought you here.
Yeah, I think like it's a lot of things. It's a very complicated. At some point, the developers and the people that start things are least wanted in places like that, because now it's like production, make more of that. And so I think as soon as we knew that the foundation of the IP was done, I think the writing was on the wall, and I was starting to become more of a manager, and I think it was just like the right time to leave. I knew that like the TV show, we had worked really hard to kind of steer it back into the IP and the and the proper things. Runeterra, the card game, was the art director there and everybody, we were aligned, and we had already kind of like got to the point where they already got it, they already understood the IP, and they were kind of going in their direction. So I think we all kind of felt like you can't be the IP anymore. We are the IP, and they were right. And like now it's more of like it's going to grow out of control, and we have enough foundation to where like there's a North Star and everybody can point to it, and now it's going to be very cohesive. It's not going to splinter into multiple IPs. It just feels like if you look at all the products across, it feels like the same IP, and that's all we really wanted to do, and not take every product all the way through. And I think some people might have thought that was going to be the case, but obviously we're really happy with how people are taking it, and then they're free to take it anywhere they want. And I see the videos come out, and I'm just loving it. It just feels so good that people are still cherishing it, taking care of it, and respecting that work. And it's just, to me, honestly, I'm not a kind of person that like once things get really big and I have to talk through many lines of communication, many people, get things done, it takes so long. I'm like, I gotta find somewhere where like, hey, let's do this, and everybody's like, all right, go, and and so I ended up going to Ghostly Bear. I actually did a little bit of consulting.
Okay.
For and through world building, IP development, mainly IP development, less world building, but it really helped me understand certain companies and what I was looking for and what I wasn't, and gave me a break while I was getting kind of, still an income. And it gave me an understanding of like, okay, this is a really good time to really know where you want to land next. And I got to see so many studios doing their thing, and I'm like, nope, VR's not there yet for me. No, this is too, like, I don't want to go I don't want to go 5 to 7 years on in this huge IP, next gen, AAA, amazing, it's like, okay, I don't want to age 10 years by the time this thing comes out. And so I kind of find myself like, where's a really nice place where I can work from home. I love the product and I love the people, and we're all kind of like, just fighting tooth and nail to like keep it going. And so I landed at Ghostly Bear. And I mean, honestly, I couldn't have asked for a better studio. Carl Crow, it was his company and he was running the whole thing. And the way he ran it was amazing. If a studio ends up like that again, like he should be like, if there's ever a model of what the perfect environment and how people worked, and like he just did it. Like I wanted to stay there, but we didn't get funded. And so, it was really heartbreaking leaving, and I wanted to like really just give them a longer runway and give them a shot. And so I wanted to like step off and hopefully a lot of things happen for them. And it was the right timing, but I started kind of like looking around. And then I saw, as I started, I knew there was a lot of studios out there, but I looked at Super Evil, and all of a sudden I think I got approached. I was called and said, like, what about the studio? And I started researching it, and I looked at the potential. I looked at where they're at and looked at what they've done. I know Tommy, he worked at Riot back when I was there too. So like I knew his talent. But in general, I just needed to talk to everybody. But I think it was the perfect size. They, with leadership, I felt like there was really a solid foundation for us to kind of build things. It was large enough and it was big enough to like be able to like do whatever we want. We had a strength, talent that we can flex, and I think there was enough there to where we can do anything. I felt like we can do it if we really believed it. And then as I started talking to everybody, I felt like we can do more than what I was expecting. Really, really intelligent. Sometimes I know that I'm not the smartest person in the room, but talking to some people, I felt definitely like I wasn't the smartest person in the room. They just knew way more than what I did, and I'm like, if I bring my talents to the table, it's just going to enhance the situation. It was to me, it was a perfect fit.
That's awesome.
And it's been that way so far.
That's cool, man. Yeah, you joined maybe like 6 or so months before I did, I think, right? Like, and I imagine the team grew a ton over the course of those 6 months. Not by person, but by how you guys learned to work together,
Yeah,
the decisions you made to sort of go deeper down the track of what has become Catalyst Black. Like, I think the thing that I have loved and appreciated the most about how this game has sort of come to be has been that what you said, that sort of spirit of courage to do something new, to do something different, to take all these pieces that we all really love, build a world that we believe in, a game type that maybe hasn't quite existed in other ways. And that raises a lot of concerns. It raises a lot of questions like, can we pull it off? Can we make something compelling that doesn't have sort of guaranteed proof of success, right? Like,
yeah,
I love the sort of creative courage of all of that. And I feel like you've been very much a part of what has helped sort of fuel some of that courage, particularly in how we view, uh, building a new IP or the benefits of that. It's not a chain around our neck. It's a
yeah.
liberating opportunity to bring something new to the table. And I'd love to hear a little bit of your thoughts, around Catalyst Black. What have you enjoyed the most about that journey specifically around this game? And, what have been some of the biggest challenges and what are you looking forward to the most? I think I just would love to hear a little bit about your specific thoughts on the game itself and where we're heading and where we've come from.
Yeah. So I think like the thing that I am really excited about and I'm have enjoyed is the ability to listen to each other and to understand the challenges in front of us and to act on them. So what I'm saying is the game is very different than what it was when I got there. We all looked at it, tried something, pivoted. We tried something, tried again. And my instinct was, oh my God, I got to do this all over again. Even though I enjoyed doing one, we also still knew that we want to like not spend years making and developing a game. We're committed to trying to make, a year and a half to 2 year cycles and maybe even faster than that over time, but never sacrificing quality, never sacrificing the experience. And so that's challenging, but I can see that like we could have just kind of delivered something quickly and it would have been good enough to most people. And this team was like, nope, we're going to try again. Nope, we're going to try again. Every time that we shifted, we made our timeline shorter and made it harder on ourselves. And
Yeah.
that's that grittiness. That's that team that says, no, we want all of it. We want to go fast and we want it good.
It's that beautiful greediness.
Yeah. But you have to pay the consequence, right?
Yeah.
And so the consequences are that, you kind of, push yourself a little too much, and we're learning and balancing that. And it's hard, but it is also exciting. It's invigorating. And I can say that I'm tired as heck, but I'm having a ton of fun. It's kind of
Yeah.
like a kid at a candy store that's attached to a amusement park, and he's just so tired. But he's like, but this is awesome. But I'm so tired.
Yeah.
That's that feeling, and I think like
Yeah.
not exaggerating, but it is. At the end of the day, every night I am dead tired, and when I close my eyes, I am out for the
Yeah.
night. So those are like the challenges is trying to balance life, and
Yeah.
working from home. To me, I've been working from home for a long time, but trying to navigate and working with people that aren't working from home and
Yeah.
convincing them or trying to communicate to them in that manner, saying that you can do most of that communication via remotely, but that's taken a long time to
Yeah.
kind of formulate. But we were doing that and we're starting to get on the same page before COVID. COVID just says no, 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 we're going to force this.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
yeah,
Felt like it solidified all the motion that had sort of begun for us. It just said, no, there's no turning back now. You're committed. And that's been an interesting journey, especially for those of us who were working remotely before. And now the whole company's working remotely. It's like sort of solidified solutions to our problems out of
yeah,
necessity. So, well, man, I'm thrilled to be a colleague of yours. It's been a real honor to sort of get to know you, your standards for quality, your ambition for the world that we're building, your hopes and dreams. And, we're trying to shove as much into the production timeline as we can without absolutely killing ourselves. But It's an honor to call you a colleague, and I really appreciate you being
And
here. There's so much we have yet to sort of share and explore with this game, and really excited to be on that journey with you. So I'm also sensitive to the fact that I've probably kept you over your time, and there's probably an infinite number of things that need your attention. So I should probably let you go. But yeah, man, thanks for being here. Excited to launch this game with you. And is there anything you'd like to sort of say to the community out there who are following this game? Any sort of final words or thoughts?
just know that every decision and everything that we're doing is, with them in mind. Like we will miss, we will make mistakes, but in general, I think with this team, we're going to try hard to make sure that is down to the minimum amount, that we really do make games for people, not for us.
Yeah. Man, it's so true. And yeah, to those of you who are watching, thank you for being here with us. It's been an honor to be a part of this community so far, and we're really just getting started. So please do join us in our Discord, discord.gg/catalystblack. We bring a lot of new game content for the first time to the public through the Discord. So it's a great place to get kind of early insights on what we're doing. And of course, you can stay tuned on all of our other social channels as well. Also, if you're looking to join a team, there are a couple roles available at Super Evil Megacorp, technical artist, and I believe an engineering role on our website, superevilmegacorp.com. So you can check that out as well. But that's it from me, guys. We'll do another one of these soon. And of course, never settle for the lesser evil.